So over the last couple of days, we have discussed a lot about how to play the deck, we have discussed a lot about the alternative cards that we have for the deck. And in my last Journey to the Top video, I discussed about the core of the deck and about optional cards for the deck. So with all this in mind, how does my build currently look like? So today, we're gonna do an in-depth deck profile about the deck. Alright, so today we're gonna go over the decklist I'm playing. Now, objective behind today is not so much so you can see the specific list and copy card by card. It's more about going in depth about why we are playing certain cards. And the reason behind that is that the cards are not released yet in the TCG, and even if you are in the OCG, it's a different format than the one I'm preparing the deck for. So this will be a TCG decklist. And also another thing to keep in mind is that when the cards come out, it's going to be a different format, it's going to be different decks that are the top decks, and some of the card selection is going to change, but the reason behind why we play some of the cards is going to still remain, and that's what we're going to cover today. So let's get started. The first card in the deck here, it will be 3 copies of Spiritual Beast Tamer Lara. Now the reason behind it is that Lara is the main card that helps us play to interruptions, and also she's one of our 2 important cards for our 2 card starters. Lara, with every single other card in the deck, produce an endboard. So she's very important to have. That's why we play 3 copies of her. Because when we have it in hand, we can go ahead and not only use her as an extender if we already have a 2 card starter, but also she can work as a starter herself with another card in hand. So for most of her combos, the combos that have more power, the combos that have more depth, she's gonna be the one in charge of most of the power on that. For most of the time we play through interruptions, she's gonna be the one that is gonna be the most important card to play through those interruptions. Next card in the deck, we have 3 Elders. Now the reason why we play 3 Elders is because Elder is required as a 2 card starter. Now Elder is very interesting here because you wanna see Elder in your starting hand, but apart from that, Elder also work as a card that helps us play to interruptions depending on what the opponent have in hand. So the combos that start with Lara normally allow you to search twice, and Elder is one of the cards that you search, so you can normal summon Elder and you can normal summon a Kanaha or Rampengu in your hand. Now, so I did experiment with one Elder at some point where I was playing the runic version of the deck. The reason behind it is that at one point, the runic version of the deck, I was playing it around the concept of using 1 card starters with a Rampengu and Kanaha. So that's something that can be experimented on, but I consider 3 Elders in the pure version essential since you wanna open Elder. And also, if you have Elder and Lara, and you have another way to start a combo, you have a Kanaha or you have any other Spiritual Beast, you can use your combos with Lara and Elder work as an extender in hand in case you get interrupted. So that's also useful. Now the next card is gonna be 3 Kanaha. Now the reason why we play Kanaha is that Kanaha is gonna be a really good starter for most for combos. By himself, Kanaha is a 1 card starter. And also Kanaha is a central piece in 2 card starters with Elder and Lara. So 3 Kanaha is essential because you really want to see the cards in your hand, and also when your combo get interrupted, you start with something that have Rampengu in hand, for example, or Rampengu Lara, or any other combo that has Lara. It's a really good normal summon to follow up. You still has your normal summon available at the turn. Next card is going to be 3 Rampengus. Now the reason why we play 3 Rampengus is because we want to have Rampengu not only a 2 card starter in hand, so it's good to open Rampengu, but we also want to have it in hand as an extender. So sometimes you will have a Rampengu, and you will have Lara, and you will have Kanaha, you can start your combo with Lara Kanaha, and then Rampengu in hand works as an extender in case you get interrupted at any moment on your combo. Also, Rampengu is well, not as strong as Kanaha, it's still a 1 card starter. So you want to be sure that you can play turn 1. And I think the consistency and the ability to play 2 interruptions demand that we play a place of Rampengu. Now Rampengu is a very interesting card because if we use Shield Bearer, the Noble Knight card, we can play up to 10 copies of Rampengu. So it's very interesting because this is a card we can experiment a lot with. But I would say at least a playset is essential to have in the deck. The next card is Lara and Wen. Lara and Wen are extenders in the deck and are part of the combo. So you need to have them in the deck if you want to perform most of the combos that are 2 card starters and even for 1 card starters. The main reason behind it is because most of the time you will summon Kimur Falco in the middle of your combo, 2 normal summon Lara or normal summon Wen. Not to mention that they work really well with Ulti Rey Rautari, as you can bring them back to the hand, normal summon them, and special summon from the grave or special summon from the banished zone. So those 2 are very important when we're performing those combos. Next cards will be an Apelio, that is a combo requirement, and or Winda. Now, the reason behind Apelio and Winda is Apelio is useful in the middle of the combos, and the Ritual Beast deck is a deck in which you need a critical mass of Ritual Beast monsters. The reason behind it obviously is because when you have Utikanaha, you're going to be fusing and defusing Utikanaha, and each one of them can only be a special summon 1 time. So you have a lot of situations in which you want to fuse and defuse, and you have to have enough fuse and defuse material or the ability to put enough cards in your banished zone to be able to keep fusing and defusing. Not to mention that Winda is very useful together with Lara, since in the opponent's turn, if they're going to do any sort of disruption, you can banish Lara, special Winda, and then they have to do with the floating effect that she have on the field. Now the next 2 cards are a little more controversial, and this is Sephra and Petelfin. Now Sephra and Petelfin are very interesting cards because they are not required within most of our combos, but they provide depth to certain combos. So mainly the combos that start with Lara. You start Lara Kanaha, Lara Rampengu, even Lara Apelio or Lara Elder. Sometimes you need Sephra or Petelfin to be able to extend the combo more. Another thing that they do in the case of Sephra is that it's very useful to have cards that you can search turn 3. So if you start with your combo, the stage is a hand trap, you set a half decent combo board. Another thing that is important with Sephra is that you need cards that you can search turn 3 to continue playing. So often enough, you will have your starting hand, you perform a combo, you get 1 interruption, maybe an Ash or something. So you perform your combo, you settle your board, your opponent go ahead and try to play through your board, and you end up in this situation where it's more or less a grind game. You need cards in hand, you need names left that you can go ahead and search and still play. And Sephra help a lot with that. It's not strange in turn 3 to go ahead and summon Sephra and a special summon from the grave and Ulti Kimur Falco or an Ulti Rey, or something that will help you keep playing like a Kanaha. That's why I think Sephra is so important. I can see myself cutting it and together with Petelfin, but I feel like at least from my testing, from what I have done so far, I feel I'm gonna keep it in the deck for now as a second, sort of like a second Lara with a different name. Now I feel a similar way about Petelfin. The reason behind playing it is that I like to have that extra depth in the combos. When you have the Lara combos, I like to have the ability to set up that board and just win the game basically. And Petelfin allows you to do that with a lot of combos. Not to mention that when you're going second, Petelfin is important because you sometimes get the opportunity to go ahead and summon Petelfin from the hand. Maybe you start with Lara in hand. You can summon Petelfin. You can discard, you can banish a Ritual Beast monster from the hand, and Petelfin will be able to go ahead and force an interaction by the opponent before you commit your normal summon. So I find myself actually sometimes even searching for it with something like Inheritance, just so I can have it in hand. So for now, in this version of the deck, Sephra and Petelfin are in, and this will provide us with more combo depth. And also our grand game will be a little bit better since we have more targets to search turn 3. The next card is 3 Shifters. Probably best card in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. It's just if you can play it, you should play it, and we can play it. Now, Shifter does have some interesting interactions with Lara and with the Spiritual Beast and Lara. And if you have played the deck with the new support for some time, you will notice that sometimes when you Shifter, it actually ends up harming you, because you end up not having materials on the graveyard for things like Ultinocio Dragon, or when your Lara gets banished right away, you don't have her in graveyard for the destruction protection later on. So, an interesting card, but we're definitely gonna play a playset as long as we can. Hopefully, it doesn't get hit in the ban list. So, 3 Shifters for sure into the deck. Now the next spots are flex spots. This spot is a flex spot. Depend on how the format is. For now, I'm playing Triage, and this could be another hand trap. This could be if you want to play Droll. It could be Droll. It could be, and actually I'm gonna put this over here. It's gonna be kind of for column for flex spots that we might consider modifying in the future. So the main thing with Ash is that it's here as a defensive card. And we need to consider what other defensive cards we have. This could be 3 impermanents, this could be 3 Nibiru's, this could be 3 Drolls, so just keep that in mind when we put cards in this column. This card is gonna be Kalbai, and I think Kalbai is a really good defensive card right now, because the Farking deck is the best deck in this format. But again, when the format change, when new cards come out, whenever this deck is released in the TCG, we're gonna have to reevaluate everything and make sure that Kalbai is still the card that we wanna have on the deck over other cards, no? That's something to keep in mind. Now the next card is gonna be 3 Emergency Teleport, and I really like a teleport in this deck because you are severely lacking of 1 card extenders. What I mean with that is that if you start with a 1 card combo, or you don't have a combination of cards that can help you work as an extender, you normally don't have a way to keep playing. So for example, if you start with combo something like Rampengo, or you start a combo with Kanaha, and you get interrupted, if you already use your normal summon for a turn, there is not a way to just keep playing. So Emergency Teleport solves that. Not to mention that Emergency Teleport gives us access to the best card in our deck, that is Spiritual Beast and Lara. Sure, you use the special summoning for that turn for Lara, but having her in circulation allows you to play better into boss and better through interruptions, because you can go into Ultinocio Dragon, you can go ahead and do other sort of disruptions with it. And just a small caveat with Emergency Teleport you have to remember is that in the end phase, the monster is banished, which can also come into play from time to time. But I really like Emergency Teleport because it's the one proper extender that we have, I would say. Apart from that, all the other extenders, we need a normal summon, or we need other things to be more situational, you know, like you have Lara, or when you need something in the grave for banish. So I really like Emergency Teleport for it. Now the next card is gonna be 3 Inheritance. Now I like 3 Inheritance a lot because I want the deck to be as consistent as possible. But this is something that we have to evaluate as ritual player, and I think, to be honest with you, I need more testing to figure out is 3 Inheritance the correct way to go or not. And right now I feel it's the correct way to go, just because you need as much consistency as possible. But if we have enough consistency already in the deck, I can see myself playing 1 Inheritance or 2 Inheritance. Next card we have here is 1 Bond. Now Bond is really important because it's a combo requirement for many of our combos. It's not so much that it is a quick play that can help us dodge, it's more than it's a card that we want to go through in our combos. And also when you end up with a half board, like you know, with a board that gets interrupted by some hand traps, sometimes Bond can help you by being able to special summon multi-rotary, getting back to the hand a Lara or a Wen or a Sephra, and from there you can go ahead and reverse something in the grave and play and set up a better board that you will have otherwise. So 1 Bond is mandatory in the deck, I feel. You just need too much for the combos. Now the next card is 3 Pot of Prosperity. Now the reason behind playing Pot is that we want to have consistency, basically. We're trying to play a deck with a 2 card starter, and this will be probably a probability or something that you have to test a lot of hands to find out. is post prosperity is actually needed or not. As I'm doing my testing, I'm noticing that I do need post prosperity because sometimes I end up with one card starter, so I end up with a starter that is able to play but don't have an extender. And then when you get interrupted in the middle of the combo, it's good to be able to activate pot and draw into that extra Rampengu copy that you need, draw into that emergency teleport, or whatever card you need at the time. So I find post prosperity very important because of that. This is a card that we have to reevaluate later on and could be cut from the deck depending on the situation. Now the next card is a card that wasn't even in my radar when I started looking into the deck, and it's just a card that I find very interesting. It's Book of Eclipse. Now this card, if there's a card that's gonna change in this deck, it's probably gonna be this one. If there's a card you're gonna want to replace in the deck, it's probably gonna be this one. Now the reason behind I playing Book is that I tested out and it keep performing, and obviously part of the reason for this is the Book serves dual purpose, and I really am a fan of cards that do this. For once, when you go second, Book can help you deal with some form of interruptions. If you're playing against Pyro Snake, for example, you can force the Warlord to activate. If you're playing against other decks, you're playing against the Boostless Voice deck, you can force the Ritual Buster to activate. So it can bait negates really well, and also it can help us dodge cards. So if we have Elder Kanaha and our opponent impermanent, we can use Book of Eclipse, put them both face down, and just fuse with both them face down. So it's a card that just keep performing for me. This spot throw could be used for a hand trap or for a different defensive cards. This will require testing, but I will encourage you before you replace this with a different card to test it out in your own deck. Test it out, play a couple of games with Book of Eclipse, see how it performs for you, and then replace it if you feel like it. But right now, it feels like a card that just simply has earned its spot in my deck at the moment. Now, the last two cards in the deck are two copies of Ritual Blitz Steed. Now, one copy is mandatory, but the second copy is something that has its own decklist cut, and I feel personally that that's incorrect. Now, the reason why I feel it's important to play a second Steed is because there is certain hands that you have in the deck that once you get interrupted, you want to have another trap that you can search, and a second Steed board at that moment will be... Now, the main reason behind the second Steed is because I have noticed if you don't kill your opponent, if you're not in a winning position by turn 3, you need more, if you want to call it, more gas in your deck. You need more the ability to grind better games, and second Steed provide that. Often you will go through your combo, turn 1, you will sell the first Steed, and turn 2 and turn 3, after your opponent play into your board and everything, if you don't have a clear line to OTK your opponent, you normally are not able to set up that good of a board, because you go through a lot of your cards through one, and you end up not having good searches from the deck. So that's where the second Steed going to play. Not to mention that also second Steed is something we can search quite often in our 2-card combos, and also when our combos get interrupted sometimes, we end up in a situation where you can make a second ulti Kanaha, and there will be a better endboard if you can put 2 Steeds face down. That you could go ahead and perform other sorts of play or some other monsters. So I find the second Steed very important, in particular mainly because of the grinding. Right, so now let's go into the extra deck. Now for the extra deck, the first card we have here is 3 Kanahas. Now the main reason why we play 3 Kanahas is because obviously I feel 1 or even 2 is mandatory, and the tier 1 is the one that we can discuss here. The reason why we play 3 is that you often in your combo and your starting hand we go and summon 1 Kanaha and even leave it in the field, or summon 2 Kanahas. And it could get very dire if you're not in a situation where you summon the second Kanaha, you don't have a way to defuse at that moment. Because if you don't have Kanaha in the extra deck, your deck lose all the ability to keep grinding. Now the tier Kanaha doesn't come up that often, but the need to have the ability to grind games we kinda have, I feel it's too important for us to don't include the tier 1. Now, this is something I need to experiment more with, playing 2 only. I need to see how many times it come up, but at least for now, I feel like a tier 1 is pretty much an auto-inclusion right now in the deck. Next card we have here is our Ulti Apelio. This is a combo requirement, basically. So you need at some points in many of the combos, you need to have a way to put another Spiritual Beast monster in the graveyard with something Rampengu, and that's where Apelio going to play. I don't think it has ever summoned this card. It's basically just here to put Apelio in the graveyard and be part of our combos. Now the next card we have here is 2 copies of Ultinoshi Dragon. Now the main thing with Ultinoshi is that it's the main card that helps us play to interruptions together with Lara. So we want to have more than 1 copy of it, because when the tier combo comes around, you will need a second copy, plain and simple. You will need a second copy, and I would say we play as many copies of Ultinoshi as we think there's gonna be turns in the game. I'm talking about relevant turns where the game is still not decided. You don't have an overwhelming advantage, the opponent doesn't have an overwhelming advantage, and neither of the two of you are in a position to OTK the other. So you need 1 Ultinoshi for turn 1, you need the other one for turn 3. Also, targeted protection help a lot, and it can help you to go ahead and play through interruptions in your opponent's turn 2. Now the next card here is 2 Ultimo Falcon. Now the main reason behind Ultimo Falcon is that you need 1 as a combo requirement, and the other one is here as a banished materials for our Spiritual Beast Rampengu. Now instead of 2 Ultimo Falcons, I see a lot of people play 2 Ulti Gaia Pelios. I feel I like more the Ultimo Falcons, because if you haven't used Rampengu yet and you go through the first one in your first turn, when turn 3 comes around, Ultimo Falcon can help you OTK the opponent and also set up better boards. This will go into a different card that we have in the extra deck that I'm gonna showcase later. But I found the second copy of Ultimo Falcon being more important than the second copy of Ulti Gaia Pelio, for that matter. Now the next card we have here is Ulti Gaia Pelio. Now Ulti Gaia Pelio is a card that I feel I might be able to cut in some lists. And I remember in the past there has been Ritual Beast this before this new support that has cut Ulti Gaia Pelio all together. And the reason behind it is Ulti Gaia Pelio is a very niche card. You don't want to set it up in most of the boards unless you're trying to play around Nip. And on turn 3, you might not have the resources in hand to make his effect useful. So it's a weird card to include in a deck. But part of Ulti Gaia Pelio that's important is that it also is a really good target for Winda, floating effect. So with a float, you can summon Ulti Gaia Pelio and you have a 3200 beat that you can get over stuff. So it becomes quite important in the grinding because of that. But it's quite niche, and most of the time I don't summon it. So if there is a card that could be caught in this extra deck, Ulti Gaia Pelio will be one of the candidates for that. Now the next card is Ulti Rei Rotary. Now Ulti Rei is very important for our combos and very important as a form of interruption. I found that 1 copy is mandatory in the deck. Now, interesting enough, Ulti Rei is a card that I feel you could use 2 copies in the deck. If there is a card that will be the 16th card in the deck, it might be, at least for me, the second copy of Ulti Rei Rotary. I feel like you summon in turn 1, you make it part of your combo, and when the opponent's turn comes around, the effect is very useful to have a banish. And when your turn comes around again, sometimes you feel you want to have another Ulti Rei, just so you can you can add to the hands of the banish and normal summon it. So it's a really good card in the deck. Right now I'm playing 1 copy because of a space. I feel that I do feel that the second copy has gone up a couple of times when I'm playing for turn 3. So it might be a card that include 2 copies in the future. We have to do more playtesting for that. Now the next cards we have here is SP Little Knight and IP Mascarena. And I feel, sadly, I feel SP is just too important in the deck. And you have to play it, it's mandatory. IP is also very important to the deck and mandatory. The main reason is that our deck, Ritual Beast, doesn't lock you into anything. So you end up in a lot of situations where you can go ahead and set up an IP to go into SP, and the two vanishing effects that SP has going to play very, very handy. And it's one of the best things that you can do with two monsters on the board. Not only that, it also helps you play to interruptions. It's just all around, it's one of the best cards, if not the best strategic monster right now in the game. Another thing with SP and IP is that our starting board set both of them. So it's important to go ahead and what I mean with set both of them, you set up IP and the opponent's turn you can go into SP and banish two monsters, no? So in general, SP and IP are just parts of our starting combo and also parts of our end board and also cards that help us play to interruptions. So they serve too many purposes and are too important to cut or to don't play. Now the next three cards are going to be very interesting here, because I think these are the main flex spots that we have in the extra deck, and stuff like Super Poly could take care of these spots, or cards I'm going to mention later on could take care of these three spots. The first one here is Appaloosa, and Appaloosa is very interesting in this deck because you are not aiming to set up Appaloosa turn 1, but instead Appaloosa is sort of like a backup you have for your turn 3. And the main reason behind that is that you will notice when you're playing the grind game, when you get to turn 3, you go through a lot of your combos, a lot of your cards, and you need a powerful monster to put on the field. And you have the materials for it. You will often have, maybe you can bring back Ulti Ray, and you can bring back a summon Kimufalco, split Kimufalco into two monsters, and find a way to put another monster on the field. But you end up with a lot of monsters in the field and nothing to do with them. So Appaloosa normally covers that situation. The good thing with Appaloosa is that you bring Ulti Kimufalco from the graveyard, it counts as 2. So you can go ahead and make her with 3 monsters, and it's just a card that is reliable in the grind game, because if the opponent has a good way to out it, they have to waste a lot of cards just to get rid of the Appaloosa you have on the field. And now this spot could be our second Ulti Ray, and normally what I see people do is that or they play Appaloosa or they play 2 Rays. Now both are useful. The reason why I prefer Appaloosa is over the second Ray is that I like the option to have Appaloosa in the deck, and also when you're going second, Ulti Ray effect to banish is only on your opponent's turns. So Appaloosa is more useful to break boards, or I shouldn't say so much break boards, but to establish in a board after you try to play through interruptions than something like Ulti Ray. That's why I feel the second Appaloosa, the first Appaloosa is more important than the second Ulti Ray. Now this could change with more playtesting, and this is something that I encourage you to go ahead and try out yourself. Now the next card here is Baguska. Now Baguska is a card that is at the border of cutting, and the reason behind it is that you can set up Baguska really easily, but I don't know if it does enough, Like, I feel you can put 2 boards in the fields and it's quite nice, but just the ability to set up the board and have other interruptions with your link monsters, I don't know how valuable it is in the current format or it will be in future formats. So that's why I feel Baguska right now is a card you can cut. I don't find myself putting in my endboards, and to be honest, I haven't summoned it that much. I think maybe just a handful of times. I still kinda debating what should I put in there instead. So Baguska is a card that I feel it can help you in the grind game. You can put it in defense and see you can draw into something better the next turn. But most of the time by that point the duel is already lost. Now if you're playing Baguska, it's a card that I'm not playing right now, and that's Zeus, and that made Baguska way more viable, because you can go Baguska into Zeus and you can pop and that can help you clear boards. So just something to keep in mind if you play Baguska, and remember seals also send and not destroy, so an important concept there. Now the last card I'm playing in the extra deck is Typhon. Now Typhon is kind of that card that if you need a utility card as the first card in your deck, you just put it in. The main thing behind Typhon is that you will often have a board that gets interrupted, and then you can summon Typhon and still bounce something and still have something that is sort of powerful in the field. Not to mention that the restriction for 3000 or more doesn't affect almost any card that we play except for our ulti Gaia. Now Typhon is a card that needs more playtesting, at least right now. The reason behind it is that I don't know if Typhon is a card that come up when you are ready to lose the game, so it doesn't matter, or come up and give you the opportunity to win a game that is almost lost. So for that, in this deck and when the format comes around, we need to do way more playtesting. Now the next card we have here is the side deck for the deck. Now for the side deck, there is some cards that will be specific for the deck. For the most part, most of the cards are going to depend on the format. We don't know what format the cards are going to be released on, and this is not an OCG list again, so your format might vary a little bit from this one. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and go over the 15 cards I'm using currently as a side deck. So as 3 draws, which I consider a really good card right now, although I'm a little kind of defense about it, since I'm noticing there might be other alternatives that are simply better, you know, like Impermanence, DD Crow, or Nibiru. So this, again, similar to the cards we mentioned in the main deck, the side deck in particular is going to depend on the format, it's going to be very specific depending on who we're going to try to play against. So the next one is 3 Cosmic Cyclones. It's a perfect example of what we just mentioned, since a Cosmic Cyclone was nowhere to be seen in the side decks or main decks just a month ago, and now everybody is side decking it because of Farkin. So it's gonna be like that 4 months down the line, 5 months down the line, whenever the cards are finally released. So it's a card we have to consider. The next card is gonna be 2 Triple Tactics Trust. Now Trust is interesting because Trust kinda go against an idea that I proposed a couple of videos ago, and it's that this deck has issues forcing interruptions, and obviously Trust, the opponent needs to activate a monster effect in order for it to be live. Now a very important thing, and each team with Trust that I'm considering, is that Trust we're signing in going second, so we're gonna have 6 cards in hand. So it's more likely for us to have a card that will allow us to keep playing if we get interrupted. So that's the reason why we have Trust in here, because we could start a 2-card starter and interact with the opponent in some ways. Maybe they have a disruption effect with the Prometheus Princess, maybe they have an Ash in hand or some kind of interaction. They activate an interaction and we go ahead and able to activate Trust and search one of the targets to keep playing. So that's the important thing about Trust here. Again, this side likely will change when the format, when the cards are released and the format change. So stay tuned for that. Now we have here Triple Tactics Talents, which is just to help us keep playing one of Trust targets. So Release, which is a very important card just to manage opponent monsters in grave. Help a lot with Farkins, and you will notice a lot of these are mainly geared to be the Farkin deck. You have a Refair Duster, that's just a utility card. Lightning Storm, which is a little iffy. I need to kind of defense about it. Reason behind it is that you need to have no face-up cards, and you're using it as a Triple Tactic Trust target. So how you gonna force the opponent to activate a monster effect? Well, it's a little odd, no? Because if you force the opponent to activate a monster effect, you often do that with an inheritance on the field, or you do that by normal summoning a monster, and then you activate Trust, and Lightning Storm is dead. So it's a very niche application, but sometimes when you need Lightning Storm, you really need a way to just get rid of monsters. So it's dead because of that. And the last one here is the Barrier. The Barrier, the important thing here is that there is a lot of branded variants going around. So this is here mainly for as a trust option for that. Now the last two cards here are cards I really want to talk about that are more interesting. It's a card we talked a lot about yesterday, and it's Link Spider. I prefer sidecking it because that way I would like to invest strategic spots for cards that will come only in very situational times. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that, as I mentioned yesterday, if Nibiru is in all the main decks, if a lot of people are main decking Nibiru, we need to main deck Link Spider. As it is right now, I notice some people in the side deck, but we should expect the opponent will have Nibiru in their deck coming in the game 2 and game 3. So Link Spider is here because of that. It's gonna help us play through a nib, and our opponent's gonna definitely start digging in if they lose game 1. So, and the last card that we have here in the side deck is gonna be Gaga Cowboy. Now the reason behind it is that this deck, even when you're playing as fast as possible, takes a lot of time to play. If you perform your full combo, a full Ritual Beast combo takes 5 to 7 minutes. Depending on how fast you're playing, and your opponent is interrupting, if the opponent is trying to ask what effects do, which will be something we have to get used to with playing a deck that is quite niche. So I feel it's important, it's vital, I would say, to have a way to win on time. And we have a very easy time making 2 level 4s into Cowboy. Now, something to consider here is that in order to summon Cowboy, you need to go ahead and go at least through part of your combo. So if you start with Elder Crampengu, for example, you need to be able to normal summon to Husky Mufalco, get an additional normal summon, and bring something like Kanaha from the graveyard, and has a way to put 2 force in the field, no? So just something important to keep in mind. But yeah, you do need a way to win in time if you're gonna play this deck. Right, so as we're done talking about the deck list, I do have some cards I want to talk about. Again, as I mentioned before, this is not so much for you guys to see list, but more so we have a clear understanding of why we are playing certain cards. So I think there's cards in here that probably some of them will be in the final list when the cards are finally released. Probably some of them will be more useful in the OCG if you're playing the OCG format than the TCG, and I just want to talk about them because I think they could be included. The first one here is Nibiru, and this doesn't only represent Nibiru. This includes Infinite Impermanent, Ghost Bell, even Artifact Lancia, and any other card that we can consider as a hand trap. So just to keep in mind that we have hand traps that could be occupying the spaces that we have in the main deck for Ash Blossom, for the Book of Eclipse, for the Card by the Grave, and all those cards. So these are cards that we need to think about format. We do have the flex spots to play all the way up to 12, even 15 hand traps, so that we can keep in mind. The next card here is Super Poly. We do have the space in the extra deck if we want to go ahead and play Super Poly. We have some spots that could be cut to play Super Poly. So these are things that we want to keep in mind. Super Poly is supposed to be a really good card right now. I am not playing it at the time. So if you want to play Super Poly, you can use one spot for Garura, one spot for Mod Dragon, and you could play those two. Or if you want to have a tier spot for any of the other multiple Super Poly targets that we have, that could be used for that. So just something to keep in mind. Super Poly, if you want to play, we do have the spots, we do have the space to go ahead and play. So the next card we have here is Dimensional Fissure. Now, Dimensional Fissure I find is a card that I personally don't think should be in our main deck, even if it's really good. The reason behind it is that Dimensional Fissure is only good going first, and the applications are quite niche. If you draw it going second, it has to be a very specific format for it. Now, on the other hand, I feel Dimensional Fissure could be really good for a side deck. But they're gonna require, they're gonna depend a lot on the format and if we have the space for it. Right now, I'm not even playing the side deck because I prefer cards in the side deck that are better going second, because I think the deck is strong enough to win going first. So you have to consider the Fissure. so that we can put in the side deck. And we also have, similar to how we do with Shifter, we do our Diffusor Rampego combos. So it's something we can keep in mind. The next card is going to be Crossout Designator. And Crossout Designator, unless we have a hand trap that is completely overwhelming and is in every single deck, something like Maxi, I don't think we will ever play Crossout Designator in the main deck. We do have that niche combo with Wen, that is Crossout and Wen. But for the most part, it just doesn't do. It's a horrible card to draw as the 6th card in your hand, and it should go first. And it's only useful going first. Now, Crossout is really good as a sided card. It should need something to go first. I feel like we're gonna play. We could even play 3 copies of this. We see there is a very, very hand trap reliance in the format. Now, I personally feel that Crossout is not good enough to put in the side deck, and the main reason behind that is the same thing I mentioned about Dimensional Fissure. I don't like side decking cards that are good only going first and going second, particularly side cards are only good going first. So I feel like we need something with more impact if we want to have a going first particular card. Now the next cards are alternative for our extra deck. And the first one here will be Abyss Dweller, and this is going to be format dependent. We can make 2 4s really easily. We can set up Abyss Dweller in our end board, but it's just going to be format dependent. See if we play it or not. The next cards are going to be Relinquish Enigma and or Linkuriboh. I feel like one of these 2 could be in our deck, and the main reason behind it is that when we're gonna use a Spiritual Beast Termilara as a fusion material, it's the same thing for us to have her in the field that to have her in the graveyard. Not to mention that Anima can help us play 2 interruptions, and Linkuriboh can help us dodge targeting effects on the field. So the 2 cards are important. I don't feel like I wanna play any of them right now. Are cards that we're gonna consider for or final version of the deck. Now, similar to Linkuriboh and Relinquish Anima, we have Almirage. Almirage has in some lists. We do normal summon a lot, and we do normal summon monsters with 1000 or less attack. You know, you can have a Lara, you can have an SP Lara, you can have an Elder, and any of those monsters could be converted into Almirage. Now, I don't find the use for it right now. I just find one of those cards that when you're building your deck, look at these cards before you finish building it, just so you can have it in mind and make sure that you at least consider it. The next card is Lars, and I find Lars is a very interesting card because sometimes when you get interrupted, you're gonna end up with 2 Ulticanahas on the field, and you will have the opportunity to go into Lars. And it always kind of sucks when you end up in that board because your opponent interacted with you on your turn and you don't have a Lars to go to. So if I had the space, I would include Lars, just because a non-negate is always good. But right now I don't have the space to put Lars in there, but it's sort of like our quintessential utility monsters. The next card is one that we already talked about, and is Zeus. And the thing with Zeus is, we mentioned before, if we're playing Baguska, Zeus is a really good inclusion because we can go ahead and use Baguska and go into Zeus, no? And same thing with Lars. If we're playing Lars, we want to have that give us even more access to Zeus. So just a card to keep in mind. I feel like right now it doesn't come up often enough for me, but just another card to consider for final version of the deck. And the last card here is Underworld Goddess of the Closed War. Underworld Goddess is really good in this deck, really good. And if I could have a 16 card, 17 card extra deck, I would definitely include her, because we can summon her really easily. This deck, once you go through half of your combo, you will normally, you will quite often have Kimur Falcon, a monster like Wen or Lara, and a monster that Wen or Lara revive. And that's 4 materials right there, and you can use your opponent's monsters you're trying to break a board as defeat one and summon Underworld Goddess, which herself has a really good effect. So it's a card I want to consider for sure. I feel like this is gonna fight for that last spot with the Ulti Rotari. You're gonna be there with the Baguska, with the Appaloosa, and those are gonna be spots that we're gonna consider as flex spots for these cards. So that's the deck list I'm currently working on. As you can see, it has a lot of cards that are quite experimental, other cards that I'm just playtesting at the moment, and this list will likely change by the time the new support is released in the TCG, as the format will be different than our current format right now. And if you are in the OCG, the format differences, you will have to adjust the list accordingly. Now again, the main thing I want to get across with this video is why we play certain cards, which is something that won't change format to format, and it's something we're gonna reevaluate if new support comes out. Now, with all this in mind, one last thing that I want to mention is the sample size issue that we have with when I create a deck list like this. And only one person doing my playtesting myself, so apart from this and what I have seen online, we have quite a small sample size, to be honest. And this is probably something that I'm going to talk about in the live stream too. We have quite a small sample size of where to get information from about this particular decks, and this is an issue that is just permutate in other Yu-Gi-Oh decks, and also through our selection of what to play. I'll probably cover that in the live stream. Talk about the live stream, that will be on Sunday, so there won't be an upload tomorrow, sorry. But on Sunday we're gonna be having the live stream, and that will be at 8 AM Central Time, and I believe that's 3 PM Central European Time. So I really hope to see you there. And alas, if you like this video, if you find it useful at all, if you find this list something you wanna try it out, I would really appreciate you like the video. And also, if I miss any cards that you think I should consider, if there is any card you wanna ask me my opinion about, you can put down the comments below. And if you wanna see the evolution of this list forward, I'm gonna keep making Ritual Beast content all the way until the support get released for the TCG, and even beyond that, as I'm planning to hopefully, I'm gonna be working towards topping with the list when the new support comes out in a regional in the Midwest. So when I'm working towards that, and you want to see my journey through that, I would really appreciate you subscribe. So again, if you want to check the live stream on Sunday, that will be at @YGO channel, as well as twitch.tv/@YGO, and I hope to see you there on Sunday, and thank you again so much for watching.